Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everybody. How y'all doing? I feel like every time we have to do this again, how y'all doing? Thank you. It was a little better. We have a really powerful, beautiful panel for you coming up on Real Talk of Movement Lawyering. So to talk some truth. But before that, we have an amazing guest to do a quick spoken word piece for us. So please welcome Free up to the stage to bless us with some beautiful art.
Good afternoon, everyone. How y'all doing? Doing good, doing good. Everybody looks beautiful. Everybody looks incredible. So I have like 3 poems I'm going to run through real quick. And I hope you enjoy them. If you've never been to like an open mic or a poetry slam or anything, some of that etiquette, real simple, is you can snap. If you hear something you like, that's a good affirmation. It won't necessarily disturb your performance. However you want to react is fine. I rehearse these poems a lot, so you will not throw me off, okay? All right, I'm gonna start with the first one. Question: did you know that depression and anxiety looks different for a Black boy? From the womb, we start our traumatic journey. When you don't understand our behavior, you just diagnose it. What you try to name is our hyper-protest of the trauma we can't talk about, so we laugh and joke our depression under our smiles, only to cry alone in the dark, silently breaking from the weight of expectation crushing our backs. Black boy, be tough. Black boy, don't cry. Black boy, be a punching bag until it's time to knock a nigga out. Black boy, be a man. We expect you to lead this family. Now, dunk like LeBron, catch like Julio, write like Martin, and speak like Malcolm. Black boy, stop crying. Black boy, be tough. Black boy, be a diamond, because we are pressuring you. Now, pick 3. Prison, casket, or nothing. It's depressing to be held in a prison of expectation, for burying your emotions in a casket of numbness, for not keeping everyone's hope alive. So you rub your hands together, hoping to press life into the chest of the dead ambitions. But how is a boy supposed to take care of adults who have yet to grow up? Yet to see that a child's job is to be young, wild, and free, not some get out of the hood scheme. That's why they teach us to be hard, to feel nothing, to grow concrete over our skin, for it's iron around our hearts and what our tear ducts shut. Baldwin said, to be Black and conscious in America is to constantly be in a state of rage. And we're constantly looking over our shoulders, and we're constantly seizing up because red and blue lights dancing over sirens is triggering. Constantly in fight or flight. Anxiety is our best friend, and depression is the ex we always go back to. So I fight, because running is for the weak. I fight for my respect. I fight to be heard. I fight for my confessions not to be thrown in my face. I fight to get out of bed, to admit that I'm not okay, to admit that I need you. Now I'm fighting to tell you that I'm tired of fighting. So I run, hoping to find a safe space where I don't have to run anymore. You know, a place where my tears are as valuable as LeBron's dunk, Julio's catch, Martin's writings, and Malcolm's speeches. You know, a place where someone can tell me, hey, Black boy, heal. Y'all are too kind. And with this one, if you want to join along, you definitely can. Y'all gonna catch it though, watch. God is good all the time. And all the time is what I hear when a Black woman enters a room, cooks a meal, wipes a tear, and lifts a chin. Comparison is the death of joy, but the first breath of truth. What does the Black woman and God have in common? 1, both play vital roles in our existence. They carefully held our bodies and nurtured our souls into being. They make sure we eat, not only meals, but fill us with love and life. If unconditional love exists on earth, then it is found in the smile of a Black woman. Mary immaculately conceived the man that changed the world, which is to say, Black women are the only ones trusted with miracles too. They hear our prayers and give mercy despite our sins. With welcoming arms, they embrace the broken bodies of our mistakes, dress the wounds of our ignorance with grace-filled kisses. Their lips rarely rebuked because they are so busy repairing. Like broken bowls, they fill our fractures with the finest gold, sweet honey-filled affirmation, candy-coated wisdom, and send us on our way, knowing we'll need to be fixed again. 3, they exist in a world of unbelief because of their power. Normally, we don't make the Black woman synonymous with God. We do equate her to servant, designed for our pleasure, but never do we truly believe in her. To believe in God is to believe in a being that is greater than ourselves. To believe in her is to admit that we have been atheists to her presence, to not take her word seriously until prophecy begs for revelations, until her voice echoes through the corridors of time saying, do you believe that I am who I say I am? Blasphemy rests on our lips in the form of, Black woman, be strong. Black woman, don't be angry. Black woman, submit. Black woman, part your legs, but not your lips, because your assertiveness kills our fetish. Black woman, entertain us and be abused because we know your pain doesn't matter. Did you know that the main thing the Black woman and God has in common is that when she is crucified, no one cares. No one cares because they don't know that our salvation rests in her liberation, that her walk be parable and her hands are too miraculous for the fair to see, that men be Pharisees to her gospel. No one cares because Atlas is a Black woman. And because her back has been strong for our comfort for so long, that whenever she decides to let the world go, let the sky crack and become a fire-filled smoke, will we even think to pray? Because like God, we forget about her until we need her saving grace again. Comparison is the death of joy, but the first breath of truth. God is good all the time, and all the time is what I hear when a Black woman enters a room, cooks a meal, wipes a tear, and lifts a chin. Nobody sleep, right? Okay, I want to make sure nobody's, okay, all right, cool. Got one more and I'm out your way. Nothing loves you like a pit bull. Especially the loyal ones whose hue is a cloud resting on snow. You see, they are more than what meets the eye. The truth about dogs is white hands are always itching to pet them. They must say hi. They must feed them and make sure they're okay. They love to own them. Never hurt a dog. They lock football players up to defend them. They fight to push against the stereotypes. You see, historically, this breed is the result of two stronger ones mating. Built for speed, power, and aggression, you know, big head, red nose, short body, and muscles equal predator, but they see beyond that. I do too. Those jaws that lock also utter cries of affection. That muscle brown frame is more than hard work in battles. Those eyes hold a soul. A lot brighter than 3/5 of a person. Those teeth are not demonic fangs that bite. They can create a smile that is able to thaw the coldest of hearts. You see, they welcome them into their homes and let their children play with them. But you see, the truth about dogs is they'll see them before they ever recognize me. Nothing loves you like a slave, especially house niggas. They're everything you think they are. The truth about niggas is white hands are always itching to kill us. They must gentrify. They must call 911 and make sure we are murdered. They love to hate us. Always hurt a nigga. The justice system will never defend us. We're all the same. Kinky hair, brown skin, full features, and strong back equals predator skin ranging from albino to the richest soil. Built for speed, power, and resilience. Well, I am Nat Turner's rebellion resurrected. I am Harriet's loaded gun. Now I pick locks instead of cotton because after 400 years of paying dues, my hands are open. Sam Cooke told me that change is gonna come. I am the nightmare to your American dream. No matter how they look through privileged lenses, they see slaves, niggers, black stains on whitewashed history. I am a human being that demands respect and protection. I unclench my jaw not to appear angry. I smile. Just enough of my teeth to not appear as fangs. I edit myself to fit in privileged paragraphs when I taught you to write. My eyes hold a soul, a light brighter than 3/5 of a person. Without me, there is no America. But you love dogs more because you love to be masters. You teach them tricks for your amusement. You teach them to roll over, but I'll lay dead. You teach them to sit, but I can't take a knee. You teach them to speak, but silence me. You fight for them to live, but won't let me breathe. You see, Dr. King said that the riot is the language of the unheard. So I guess our breath is a chant in your eyes or as muted as your ears, because the next time you see those fucking buildings burning, just know that the fire is the translation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, we got preachers here. I'm going to go ahead and quickly introduce Vince Warren, who's going to hold us in this next amazing panel, which is a real talk of movement lawyering. So please welcome Vince and this incredible panel.
Hey, y'all. It is a long walk up to this lectern after listening to that amazing. Can we give it up for that brother again? Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for, is it okay if I take this off, Jaribu? Okay. Thank you so much for coming to this evening's panel. And today, has been an extraordinary day, I know, for many of you, and it's been extraordinary for me. The panels that I've been connected to or involved in have been really, really great. And we've told stories to ourselves about the political underpinnings of the work. We've raised questions about the doing of the work. We've talked about how we struggle to remain accountable. And a lot of folks have raised the big question, which is, if the law serves the tools that we are fighting against, why do we use that tool? Well, today on this panel, we're going to jump into that a little bit. And I want to introduce this amazing panel of folks. So sitting directly next to me is Jaribu Hill. And they're like, Jaribu Hill is like, all you need to say is Jaribu Hill. And that's, but for those of you who don't know, Jaribu has been in this work for a minute. And I'm not telling the story about you, but I will say that one of the things that I love is that Jaribu came into this work as a cultural worker and not a lawyer. And in the transition of her political intervention, she has found herself being one of the fiercest movement lawyers based in the Delta of Mississippi, the head of the Mississippi Workers Center for Justice, and let us not forget, the organizer and convener of the Southern Human Rights Organizing Conference, SHROC. And if y'all haven't been to SHROC, y'all need to go. Sitting next to Jaribu is Nomzamo Zondo, who is a very dear friend and the executive director of the Social and Economic Initiative in South Africa. And Nomzamo is a person that I come to and speak to when I'm like, what the hell are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And you will hear clarity. You will hear questions and a tremendous wealth of experience working in a context that is in some ways different from the US context, but when we actually go to the root and we start talking about what our people want and what our people need, it is very similar context, even if the legal framework is slightly different. So Nomzamo Zondo. And then sitting next to Nomzamo is Erin Cloud Miles. Erin Miles Cloud. Erin Miles Cloud. My son is named Miles, so I kind of had Miles on my mind. But anyway, she's the co-director and founder of the Movement for Family Power and formerly Family Defense Public Defender. She's Baltimore born, Bronx living, and she's the mother of 2 beautiful children and brings to this work the really powerful idea of how the structures that we are trying to fight crush and reinforce the crushing of destroying the most valuable relationships in Black lives, which is the family relationship. And doesn't do so from a, let's just talk about the children, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't just talk about like, you know, I'm down for children, but she is really talking about the structural pieces. And so we're gonna be very excited to hear more from you. And I can't see, is Andrea Ritchie with us? Oh, maybe she's not with us. Okay, so if Andrea shows up, I will do an introduction for her. Maybe I think she wasn't able to make it, but
There she is.
oh, there she is.
Oh,
Oh, hello.
I'm here, Vince. I can hear
Oh.
you.
It's great to see you, Andrea, and my apologies. So Andrea is also someone that needs no introduction, but the short version is that this fabulous human has been documenting, agitating, organizing, and litigating around policing and criminalization of Black women, girls, trans, and gender nonconforming people for many, many, many decades. She has a range of books, including the forthcoming book that is going to be about policing work and abolition, which is we're all very excited to see come out. So Andrea, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you can hear us okay. And if I'll do my best to facilitate this discussion and make sure that you're included and that your interventions happen. So we love stories. We love us some stories in our work. We learn from them. We can be inspired by them. They can guide us on our journey to the future by teaching us the lessons of the past. But we have to be careful. We should be careful to tell the stories honestly. We should include the things that went our way as well as the things that didn't. We should include and lift up the people that actually did the work if we didn't. We should be clear on what results happen through sheer legal brilliance and fantastic strategy and skill, and what results happen by sheer goddamn luck. You feeling me on that? We should try to tell the story forwards rather than telling it backwards. This is the real talk section. This is where we're actually going to hear from folks that have been doing this work, not just how hard the work is, but how hard it can be when doing the work with people who are traumatized, with communities that are under threat, that people that are trying to be their very best selves in conditions that render them inhuman. What do we do as movement lawyers? And what I mean by telling the story backwards, which we should not be doing, is that reminiscing on what happened in the past, and you get this all the time, this is the lawyer war story. So what was that case about? And they go on for days, and you know what I mean? But we tell shortcuts when we tell the story backwards. So we may not choose to include the tremendous challenges that accompany a campaign and a legal intervention that supports it. And we may not choose to include the factionalization and fractionalization and infighting that splintered the group that we were supporting. What do we do then? We may not include talking about the lawyers with seriously problematic politics, with abusive working styles, with working with legal organizations that wielded their power in the coalition we were working in, not only to reduce the power of the people that were most marginalized, but also to silence us and our ideas and our thoughts and suggestions on the way the legal strategy should be executed. We may not choose to include how we were called out for not being accountable. We may not choose to include talk about how we were ill-equipped to work with traumatized movement allies in real time on a court-set timeline, and for how when we lost it, how we yelled, how we got passive-aggressive with our partners, how we took up too much space to force a point that nobody else agreed with or just withdrew and dropped out. We won't tell those stories, but we're going to tell some of those stories today. We are going to be talking about sort of three main ideas here. And one is how what the path looks like for us moving forward. What are some specific examples that we've had where things have not gone well? What does it look like when the movement that you're working with isn't as strong as they want to be? as an example, I've had this conversation a long time. All of us that have been doing the work thinking about Roe versus Wade. Like, this is one of those things that's a challenge for a movement organizer, a movement lawyer. Our politics are clear. We know that the Supreme Court sucks. We know that the shit is going to be happening in state courts. And we know that we need to partner with the people that have been doing the reproductive justice work forever. But we also know that everybody is underwater right now. We can't expect people to pick up the phone and say, what's the strategy? Give me some marching orders. And people are going to say, well, we had plenty of time to think it out. So here you go. That's not going to happen every time. So what do we do in those situations? That's what we want to ground it. So general ideas here that I'd love to hear some thoughts on. Grounding in why is the movement lawyering idea so important in this moment? Why are you committed to practicing the use of the legal tools to build movement power? It's one of the things we want to talk about. The second one is, let's discuss some of the challenges of movement lawyering. Why are some of the challenges what are some of the challenges that you've encountered and how have you dealt with it? Specifically, what does movement lawyering look like when the groups that you work with may be in crisis? How does that work? And then finally, we often quote Audre Lorde when she says, you cannot use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. And the law is clearly a tool of the master. So the question is, how do you hold this tension as a movement lawyer? What can the law be a transformative tool? If so, how should we use it? If not, why should we choose it? So, would you mind if I start off with you? Okay. A few thoughts, Jaribu, on why the movement tool is so important, but I think really thinking about the latter two questions, which is some of the challenges that you've had, and also how do you reconcile and how do you deal with the tension of the tool that we've chosen?
Can I tell a story to get us started?
Can I say no?
No. Okay, so I was the president of the Magnolia Bar, which is the Black bar in Mississippi. I don't know why we named it after the slave flower, but that's a whole nother story. So in being president, I was asked to put together a panel on labor rights, on workers' rights, because in most petty bourgeois organizations, including that one, labor rights are the last thing that we consider. We go to many conferences and the word workers' rights never shows up. Workers never are invited to speak. We come and we tell their stories for them. So this particular time I said, I'm gonna put together a panel of lawyers to talk about workers' rights. That was a big mistake, first of all. One of the people that I put on was a woman who had represented a man at Lazy Boy, and Lazy Boy in Leland, Mississippi masquerades as Leland Manufacturing, trying to throw people off the scent that they're really Lazy Boy. And we did a campaign because, you know, the Super Bowl chair, the Lazy Boy recliner, is the favorite chair. So we did a campaign, Decline to Recline, with Lazy Boy. And the reason we did the campaign, because there was wage theft, there was workers getting beaten up, all kinds of shit was happening. Bosses were touching people's breasts and their asses. Everything was going on in this one place. So enter this one woman who hears about a man being hoisted with a hoisting machine as a joke. Two white boys and him. They're together in this work break room or whatever. They hoist this man up and he's hanging upside down. They come back because they're worried and scared and they let him down and say, oh, we were just playing. We were just kidding with you. He goes and hires this knucklehead who was going to be on my panel, and she files a lawsuit on his behalf. So I'm having a chat with her because nobody comes on my programs without knowing who you are and what you're going to say, because I got a reputation to uphold. I'm not bringing you on if you're a knucklehead. So I got to know your politics before I invite you to be on a panel that I'm supposed to be hosting. Why did I ask her, what did she file? Workers' comp. I said, wait a minute, wait. A man was hoisted upside down, hanging, and you filed workers' comp. Well, it was workplace injury. So we're on the phone, right? And I'm saying to myself, okay, there goes all my credibility, gonna be shot to hell when I put this woman on. They're gonna say, what was Jaribu thinking? Jaribu's a knucklehead too. Well, the creator was smiling on me. The stars were lined up. She called me a week later and said, oh, girl, you know, I got to cancel. I got to travel for family. I said, look, no worries. I said, brain check, we'll get you the next time. And I'm like, whoa, oh, I dodged that bullet that would have shot me in my head during the panel. So I opened up with that because one of my challenges is us, our class privilege, our really being full of ourselves and thinking that we could be of value is the problem for me, okay? And I include myself, I don't exclude myself and stand back from it and act like I never do it. The other problem I see is the fact that there is no true left anymore. I mean that, I'm not kidding. You would not believe that I was in a Black radical setting. At breakfast one morning, I said that I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. I'm at a table full of revolutionaries. And one person says to me, well, you voted for Trump and walked out of the breakfast room. Later, we were supposed to have dinner. They stood me up. I sat in the lobby and waited for them. They never showed. I'm persona non grata because I don't believe in the system of any kind. How is that in the left, we can't find a safe haven? How is it that in the left, we are told, and I just got to stand on my feet in the name of Fannie Lou. How is that you actually put a value judgment on somebody because they're militant? When did being militant become unacceptable? When did respectable politics replace being a revolutionary? And when did we ever think that a petty bourgeois lawyer, self-included, was going to lead any kind of revolution? Was it with Nelson Mandela, who didn't treat Wendy right? I'm going to just tell it, I got to tell it. Or was it Kamala Harris, the cop, the head cop in California, who y'all started a campaign, I said this yesterday, Chucks and Pearls. I look on Facebook and people that I've been knowing for years on their Facebook page got Chucks and Pearls for Cop Mala. So I'm just saying, when can I show up as my true self against the system itself? And if y'all weren't here this morning, we are renovating now because the stage was tore up and the tables were burned up with Robin and Tangiwe. And I remember Robin saying, don't forget who was responsible for the Hyde Amendment. The peanut farmer who was paying his workers less than minimum wage when he was caught doing that while he was running for office, only got to serve one term. The peanut farmer also is the architect of the Hyde Amendment. So the contradictions are deep. I just want to know, when can we show up as our true selves? Am I going to always be censored by you? Am I always going to be said, somebody said, well, I would invite her, but I don't know what she's going to say. And then you're supposed to be a radical writing a book about worker centers. And ours is the first English-speaking worker center in the country. You can't invite me because you don't know what the hell I'm going to say. And you ain't never done no work, but you get to decide that I can't be in your book. So I'm just saying. Just saying. I'm just saying. And the t-shirt says it all. There are lawyers who said, me, oh, Dreeble, come on, the warrant is like 67 years old. What? I mean, she's old and she's ill. What can be accomplished by getting her now? Well, hell, what could be accomplished with mowing down a 14-year-old boy and a mother who lost her only child? What was accomplished through that? And you worried about a sickly old white woman who's a killer, who was, as my colleague Keith Beauchamp said, 21-year-old killer. Okay, we keep thinking of her as an old woman. You need to think of her sitting up there with her husband, rubbing his back during the murder trial. That's who you need to think about. So ask yourself and admit to yourself, you have been, at times, some of you have censored voices like the one you're hearing now, and it's not the only one. You heard them last night, you heard them this morning. You have been the one to say, oh, Robin Kelly's stuff is just too much. You know, oh my, wow, Jamala, oh my God, you know, Vince, he's still doing that. He could be doing something else. He's still at CCR, you know, wow. So when was the last time you actually felt like a radical, a revolutionary was too much? Admit it to yourself and stop it.
Welcome to the Real Talk panel, y'all. Nomzamo. Tell us a little bit about, and context is important. So a little bit about the context that you're working in, and really like maybe some examples of, because you work very deeply and embedded with movement, some examples of when things have not gone well. What happens when the movement's strong? What happens if the leaders are arrested and kidnapped? Does your work shift?
Okay, so I had a script. Script is gone now. So thanks, ma. So like I was like, this is how I'm gonna start. Like, you know, this is what Apartheid South Africa meant. This was one of the key things in it. And this is the role that the law played. And then Uma spoke and I'm like, okay, forget that. But the one key thing, even listening to her, is that for many of the people that we've worked with, Vince, they've been brought to the courts. They've had to engage with the law where they want to or not. Right? Where they want to or not. And South Africa has a very, maybe you're right to say it's got a very different context, because having started the last century in a position where the law was used to strip us of our citizenship, was used to strip us of our homes, was used to strip us of our dignity, we then get to a place where we say, actually, we want the law to mean something different. We are going to embody our vision in the law. So in South Africa, we have the constitution, it is the supreme law of the country, but in that constitution, our vision of tomorrow is there. It says we want to build a country where the government is improving the lives of each and every person living there daily. That's what the Constitution says. It says that the right to dignity is protected. That's what the Constitution says. Of course, the reality says something completely different, right? So the words in the Constitution can make me cry, can embolden me, but the reality of everyday South Africa, of being the most unequal society in the world, of having, even at this point, the majority of the wealth in white hands, I have to then show up and be like, what can I do as Nomza? Because actually this is the business of yesterday, right? Like for anyone who knows South Africa, who knows what it means to have triumphed apartheid, they can't understand inequality that means that the wealth, 80% of the wealth in South Africa sits in with 10% of the country. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So we then think, okay, what can the law do? What does the law do when poor Black people have no place in South Africa? As in they have no place to hide their head. The law has to show up. And there, Vince, what we are doing with groups like Abolitionist Zondo, you say what the law has to mean, right? So we have our view of what the law, what South Africa should be morally, and then we say the law must make that possible. In South Africa, in the last 20 years, we've made sure that in the area of housing, that you can't be evicted unless the state can put you somewhere else, which is better. And we've done that with the law, but we've done that with movements. Because South Africa, apartheid was fought with the law being used against us, but was forced through collective action. And movement lawyering brings both those things together, collective action and the law. And now we're using it against them. Even like today, I got an email from the office and like, oh, we've won this case, Like, what does this case mean for property interests in South Africa? Because for us, in the moment that we're living in now, we need the law to do what it can. Because unfortunately, our mobilizing, our collective strength hasn't taken us to the South Africa that we wanted. It took 20 years to get a court to order the South African government to give domestic workers workmen's comp, right? The courts had to order the Black African National Congress, which is celebrated internationally, to give domestic workers workmen's comp. And we've done that because domestic workers said, we don't care, we're gonna keep fighting. We'll march to parliament, we'll engage ministers. And then when they got to the point, they're like, we've had a 15-year journey and they've gotten nowhere. What can you offer us? And they said, okay, well, the worst thing that we could do is file a case that is dismissed. If we do nothing, we get nothing. If we do something, we get one, workman's comp, but two, in that case, we got every domestic worker who was injured in the last 23 years a right to claim using the law. And it's like, we don't have a choice. Like I'm born in the 80s, so like I don't have a memory of what apartheid was like. But what I do know is that doors were closed everywhere. And what movement learning enables, it enables poor South Africans to press their demands in places where they were foreign, in places where they are unwanted. They are in the courts now saying, we think the law means this. We think the law means that at the very least, if I'm employed and I get dismissed, I'm compensated. We think the law, for me, and then it's for the court to say, actually, you're dreaming. But the one thing that it's done in my practice and what I've seen, like this, I know, Vince, this is like the good story. What it has done is that when we have lost, we start with nothing and we lose. But between losing and the beginning, you put something on your side of the scale of justice. For that farmer in the Western Cape who's racist, who doesn't care about labor rights, when he knows that the Kasau was a trade union, can have lawyers that will act for them for 7 years, he thinks about, do I want to spend 2 million on legal costs? Or do I want to do the right thing and reinstate this employee? In South Africa, unfortunately, people use the courts to tie people down. The courts are probably like here, used by power. But the fact that we are as ready as they are to go to court means that they think twice about that. They think that actually, okay, it's not as easy as we thought it would be. I'm sorry, Vince, I feel like I'm preaching. But the last thing.
Preach, sister, preach, sister.
Last thing. Exactly on this point of, two things, sorry guys, sorry. During COVID, we were all locked down. You were locked down here, but the courts were not. So we could go to courts and tell people that they've killed 2 people since the lockdown started. We could go to courts and say, we don't want the army on our streets because it's hurting our children, it's killing our brothers. We don't want them there. If we didn't have the courts, people would be dying and there would be no one to account, and that record would be lost. But the last thing, which is very important to me, and I hope maybe you guys can kind of reflect on what this means for the US. For us, the law is sort of is part of the gains of our struggle. So if I today decide to turn away from the law, I'm betraying my father, I'm betraying the comrades who fought before me, who made it possible to have progressive housing law, who made it possible to have a constitution. And therefore for me, in this very different context, this is a continuation. And every day, it's like, in as much as the law is a tool of the oppressor, but there is space where Abahlali can breathe. There's space where, like in this year, Abahlali had 2 of their members assassinated. They were in the middle of a flood. They can actually say, what can the law do to insulate us so that we can struggle, so we can demand a better future, so we can organize? How does the law protect us and insulate us? And that's the work that I've been doing for the last 8 years. And I feel like it's valuable work. I get it, like we need a little bit more humility, sure. But it is that from this morning, it's like this humility and boldness, right? I don't think, I mean, I was even scared to walk up these stairs. That's how humble I am. But for anyone who's been against me or against Seri in court or against Abahlali, they probably think Nomzamo thinks so much of herself. Abahlali thinks so much of themselves. And it's because we've used the law on our side.
Thank you so much, Nomzamo, and the context is extremely important. This is super insightful. Erin, what are your thoughts on any of it? Like anything that's come up for you in terms of what's been said so far? Why are you in this work? What have been some of the challenges?
Yeah. First of all, I love that question because it's just kind of like a catch-all. Like, well, what do you think after all these amazing people before you? Well, first of all, I'm like, just listen to them. I really want to situate this thought around like, what do you do like your movement's not strong? I went to so many of these conferences. I am in kind of the arc of movement lawyering. I like to say I'm relatively young. I think people that are younger than me are like, no, you're not that young. I work in a space where people's children are taken from them every single day. When I say people's children, I mean Black women, I mean brown women, I mean disabled people, people that are like assumed to be not equipped, which is every marginalization in society. Our movement's not strong. Like I want everyone in this room who solely represents parents to raise their hand. I've never been in a strong movement the way that y'all have been. There's not 20 other organizations that are funded to come in and do this work. There are barely people within this room that know what I do. And so that is a challenge. We are small, we are a small community. We are constantly in a space of trying to convince, to explain, and to explain not to people who experience this trauma every day. Like you walk into a neighborhood, everyone knows CPS is the police. Like I'm just explaining it to y'all, not to my neighbors, like not to family members. Like that's not what you have to explain to people, right? And so what do you do for movement lawyering when the movement's not yet big? What do you do to your movement comrades who are exhausted? They have a bigger movement, but they are yet still exhausted because we are fighting oppression. How do we create spaces where there is continually more seams that are sewn with our intersectional oppressions, right? Like that's our constant duty. And it will always be that case. I'm here and there's 5 other people who aren't here, right? That are doing similar work that is more marginalized than the work that I'm doing right now. And so when I think about what is the tool of the law, I've been really trying to reflect. We had an email chain before this, and it's not that I ignored the email chain. I was like, girl, I don't know what to say to this email chain. Like, I'm just in a space of reflection, right? Because I am looking at all the lawyers who've saturated other movements and seeing, well, maybe it's an opportunity that we don't have as many hands raised, as many lawyers, right? Like, what if the solutions are we actually need less lawyers as a profession, not the tool of self-governance, that's very different, but the profession of lawyering, maybe we need more like vibrant activism and support of building solutions, building community solutions. And then the reality is like, well, okay, Erin, then why are you on this panel? right? Like, why are you still doing this job? Like, you can quit. I can. And I do feel like what I learned, because when I met Jaribu may not remember me, but I met Jaribu in a church basement, right? And when I think about what DG Kelly and what Tunjiwa were saying this morning, I think about like that 30-year vision. Like, I want to be in a church basement, but I want to be free. I don't want to be in that church basement because nobody gives a shit that we don't have families that can stay together and people are still taking Black and brown babies everywhere and poor babies everywhere. I want to be there because that's where we came and met with each other, and that's where we fell in love with each other, and that's what we want to do, right? And that's the freedom that I see. But I think that we have to be in a place of really stepping away from this, the privilege of our tool. Like, really saying, like, this is a fucking tool, put it in the fucking tool basket. Like, we all have to share, and like, we're all gonna have to do some fucking work. Like, this idea that like, I'm doing this thing for community. No, like, this is my community. Like, y'all are my community, right? Like, you're not my client. Like, you don't pay me money. Like, we are in this shit to fucking together. Like, what are we going to do? And to me, that is the paradigm shift. That is the difference between direct services and like being a public defender, which is my background. It's like, no, we're in it together. You die, I die. My heart breaks, your heart breaks. And that's the real talk. Cause like, when you're in crisis, and like, we have been in my movement in crisis. Like, when someone else's heart breaks, my heart is fucking breaking. Yes. And so the question to me is like, well, what do we do then? How do we move forward at that point?
Powerful. Thank you. I want, as I kick it to Andrea, you raised a couple of really amazing points for me, and I think one of the ones that's resonating in my body right now is that we're in it together. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that when we think about our legal strategies, when our work is hard. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of emails, a lot of back and forth, looking at the documents, We do that. We craft our craft as if it's a strategy, and there is a legal strategy. But to movement, all of that shit is a tactic. For organizers, all of that stuff we do is a tactic that they choose to pursue or they choose not to pursue. And putting that in the context of a movement tactic actually might make more sense in terms of the contradiction of this work. At some level, when you're operating to free yourself, every tactic involves invoking something that's trying to kill you, and you're just trying to flip it. So maybe, and we can talk more about that, but as you were talking, that just came into my head. Andrea, Ritchie, are you with us? What are your thoughts on, I know you have a lot of thoughts on all of this. What are your thoughts, and particularly, I know you keep saying that and she pops up, right?
I think it will pop up.
She's gonna pop up. Andrea, if you're with us.
I'm right here.
Hey, I don't know if it's been easier for you to hear. What's coming up for you? What are your thoughts on the idea of not so much why you're in movement work, but I think also what are some of the challenges and what do you think about the contradiction that's sort of been laid out about choosing the tool within the house that we are trying to dismantle?
Thanks for that. No, it's been amazing. I've been able to hear all of it really clearly. So I just want to thank the tech team and the Law for Black Lives folks for making it possible for me to participate virtually. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for leading me there too, Vince, because that was definitely where I was going to start as a Black queer feminist abolitionist. I have to start with Audre Lorde, and want to shout out the folks who were in the Black queer feminist movement lawyering group earlier, who were really deep in what that means. And Black queer feminism and critical race theory teach me that law, as you say, is a tool, and it's mostly a tool used to enforce interlocking systems of oppression that shape and limit the life chances of people I care about, and to absorb the power of movements and feed it back to us as an illusion of change in the form of new laws and policies, or maybe even new constitutions, as Nomzamo was saying, which often act as cloaks behind which continuing and increasing violence advances. So for me, there isn't a transformative potential of the law. As Thanjiwe said this morning, the problems of racial capitalism can't be solved with capitalist solutions. The law protects capital. So I feel like the answer is clear. Robin Kelly gave it to us this morning, and Thanjiwe, but that doesn't mean that we ignore the law, as Nomzamo pointed out. I think we use the law to defend people and communities where we can, but mostly we use it to create the conditions that allow the world that we want to emerge. So it's a harm reduction approach. It's not giving the law more power to shape our visions and dilute our dreams. So in that context, I want to kind of circle back to answer the question that Kayla posed yesterday, which is, what even is a movement lawyer? And to me, I think like many folks here, and like Erin was just saying, it means that you're someone who is part of movements for liberation, who happens to have a law degree, who happens to bring a particular skill set of knowledge. And that's it. Those skills are no different from or better or more important than other skills people bring. The tool is just one tool in the toolbox. Other people bring skills around cooking, or how to do CPR, or how to do childcare, or how to do carpentry, or how to make a flyer, or how to hold space for difficult conversations. Those are equally important and equally essential to our liberation. And then also for us, the knowledge that we have around law isn't the only skill or knowledge we bring or thing we can do. Like, I can shear a sheep, which might be helpful in the coming apocalypse, or I'm fully prepared to clean the toilets, photocopy, clean up, do childcare, whatever's needed. And I think that as movement lawyers, we need to be clear about that. And I've heard a lot of people speak to that, so maybe that's understood here, but it feels important to emphasize. And it feels important to also emphasize this question about not being committed to legal tools specifically. I am a Ritchie, Perez, any and all tactics person, right? And you know this, Vince, from the No Justice campaign we worked on in Louisiana, where I partnered with Women with a Vision and CCR. And there was, you know, a 5-pronged strategy to get rid of a sex offender registration requirement for people who offered oral or anal sex for money. And the litigation strategy wasn't actually even predicted to be the one that was going to be successful. And as Nomzamo said, we were like, what's the worst that can happen? We file a case, it gets dismissed. It's one of many strategies. Similarly, around Communities Unite for Police Reform and Stop and Frisk in New York City, and anytime I've used a legal strategy, it's always been part of a larger struggle using many different tactics. And that's because I've been an organizer for much longer than I've been a lawyer, and I've also been an organizer the whole time that I've had a law degree. And so I'm hoping that we all are thinking of ourselves as part of movements, and people who are, as you know, bringing a particular set of skills to the conversation when it's useful and necessary, when the community says that that would be helpful. So that's the first piece, I think, about being a movement lawyer and movement lawyering. And with that said, I'm going to share what might be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say anyway, because I want liberation for our people. I want to be free, and I want all the people I love to be free. You can't serve movements as a lawyer if you don't know the law. It's not only not helpful, it's actually dangerous. So for the first part, one of my mentors when I was at Howard Law School, Michelle Jacobs, who'd been involved in Black liberation movement since her teens, you know, we were standing in a criminal courtroom after a bunch of us had taken an arrest at a demonstration outside the Supreme Court in support of Mumia Abu-Jamal. And she turned to me and she's like, you know, fiery speeches are nice, but now we actually got to get people out of jail. We can have a brilliant analysis and razor sharp critique of the law and write the most brilliant law review article. But if we're movement lawyers, it means we actually have to be able to extract our people from the system. We actually have to be able to do what Erin did day in, day out for decades, which is stop family separation. We have to be able to stop deportation. We have to be able to protect people who need abortions. We actually have to get our people reparations. Like, meeting the material conditions of our people, as Thanjiwe talked about this morning, means it's our job, like Kayla said yesterday, to show up in traffic court, to show up at summons court, to show up on cop watch, to show up at the police precinct. In fact, one of the first times I met Thenjiwe, I was trying to bust her out of a police precinct. And we needed to do that so Thenjiwe could be who she is now and to serve the roles that she's playing now. So I think I want us to remember that as movement lawyers, it's our duty to actually know the law and have the skills to fight every instance of criminalization and of theft of money and people and time and dreams and futures that the law enables. And to know that it's just one part and one task and one piece of the multitude of actions necessary to bring us closer to freedom. So to do that effectively, we owe it to our people to know the law like the back of our hands, and to simultaneously maintain clarity about the fact that that's not where the solutions lie, and to hold on to bold creativity in challenging it as we're trying to mitigate its harms. And then the unpopular part of this opinion, which is kind of where I'll end, is you can't know the law unless you practice it. And lots of us come barreling out of law school excited about our brand new skills and think we know a lot more than we do. And we start calling ourselves movement lawyers without having the experience and practice to back that up. And our people and our movements deserve better. It's not just about researching case law and advancing the most radical reading of the law. It's actually about taking the time to learn and understand how it operates in order to be in a better position to advance movement goals. So sure, when I was in law school, I researched on Mumia's case. I did research on reparations for Nkobara. I filed impact litigation right out the gate after graduation, but I always did that in partnership and mentorship with people who had actual litigation skills and experience, some of whom are in this room. I wouldn't know half of what I know about lawyering if I hadn't partnered with Joey Mogul in litigation, or with Bill Quigley, or with Vince Warren. And with some people who aren't in this room, because our politics may not have been fully aligned, but they were willing to teach me how the law actually works. And if you don't have experience practicing, you can be really dangerous if you're not grounded in the reality of exactly how law is used as a weapon. And you need to remember that you're not likely going to be the one who's going to suffer the consequences when your theory or radical reading of the law and what you think it should be doesn't actually pan out in an individual case or legislative or litigation strategy. So we shouldn't be developing strategies around bail without lawyers who have actually had extensive experience arguing bail in the room, or we risk ending up where we are with increased pretrial detention and greater involvement in the legal system in people's lives. We shouldn't develop legislative strategies on police violence without being in deep conversation with people who actually sue the police every day, or we risk advancing solutions that hurt the people we say we're fighting for. And I just want to say, it's not any lawyer in the room will do. You need someone with experience on the specific issues to know how the system will metabolize the reforms that are being proposed. So I'm not going to show up when we're trying to do housing law and try and act like I know what's going to happen in a housing court with the thing that we're trying to put forward to reduce harms of housing law. So I think being a movement lawyer really means that, yes, we have to be radical in understanding the roots of the law. We have to be bold in our defense of our people and our communities and movement. And we have to be deeply committed to undermining and ultimately dismantling the systems that the law upholds, and be humble and responsible and accountable to our people. And that can also mean demystifying the law, decentralizing information and power around the law, and really giving our people full and accurate information. Our people really deserve that, and we don't get to decide what risks other people will take. So for instance, Interrupting Criminalization, Law for Black Lives collaborated to create a legal resource for organizations who are working to create safety beyond police. And we did a thorough assessment of all the ways the state can come for them, so people involved have all the information they need to figure out how they want to move, and then we have all the information we need to defend those experiments and efforts and build new worlds beyond racial capitalism that are rooted in Black queer feminist visions of interdependence and collective care, using our knowledge of the law to defend against the law. So that, for me, is what movement lawyering is about. And I hope that was a helpful contribution that you could hear.
Yeah, you also have that skill of answering 3 questions both simultaneously and in order, which is amazing, amazing, brilliant mind. Thank you so much. Jaribo, Andrea really raised a point about skills. What are your, and that you have to know the law. What's your thought on what Andrea said, or in terms of your experiences?
Well,
First of all, I have to say, I don't think it's possible to go through 4 years of undergrad and 3 years of law school. That's 7 years of training plus the other training and your other privileges. My question has never been whether people know black letter law. My question around movement lawyering is whether you believe in the system. I think if you believe in the system of capitalism, that means that you think it can work. That means that you're going to spend your life putting Band-Aids here and there and never doing surgery, never doing any cutting. You're going to just try to shore it up and figure out how can it work. If that's your mindset, then you're not going to be effective as a movement lawyer, no matter what school you went to, no matter how good your grades were, no matter how many tests you passed, no matter how many briefs you've written. If you believe in the system, it's going to be an issue with you understanding what this thing called movement lawyering is all about. I really prefer the term people's lawyering, because I think a people's lawyer is a lawyer who is completely immersed in the movement. And like I said yesterday when I was talking, I said it should be seamless. There should be no difference between us and our people. And so wherever we show up, where we have this help you mentality, or we're coming with skills and we're going to teach you something, it's really not working in my region where I work with mostly workers who, many of whom didn't even get a chance to finish high school, but are nonetheless brilliant and have taught us everything about how to show up. Fannie Lou Hamer had a 6th grade education, arguably the most brilliant political strategist that ever walked the face of the earth. So for me, in support of what Andrea said about skills, the way you respect your people is you show up right. You don't show up in looking scruffball, you put your clothes on, you stand up right, and you write, and you know your record. We don't talk about that a lot, but a good lawyer knows their record. And that's not just the black letter law, that's also the theory of your case. And when you show up, and see, those are technical things we can all share with you because we've been through it, and for those who are law students, we could share that with you and mentor you into that. But nobody can mentor you into the understanding that we're topplers. If we're movement lawyers, we're topplers. We're not for reform. We will work with reforms to give our people immediate relief, but we are not for reforms. We are for toppling. And make no mistake about it, the class struggle that we're in dictates that if you are a movement lawyer, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer, then your skill set is not as strong. You're not as much of a lawyer. You're not as brilliant as somebody who represents corporate pigs every day, or went to Harvard and I went to CUNY. Class struggle inside of this work that we're doing is always present. So if you're thinking that your skill set is stronger because of where you went to school, that's not going to be the test for me. The test for me is going to be you acknowledge you don't know shit, like I had to do. Acknowledge it. You don't know shit and you're ready to learn, right? And if you show up wrong, you're ready to cop to that and say, wow, I messed up when I argued that motion. I messed up. I should have argued the 14th Amendment. I argued the 8th Amendment by mistake. Okay, so you messed up, own it, and then correct it. You got the privilege of correction. Most of our people only get one shot. If they mess up, they go to prison. Yes. But you got a privilege. If you mess up, you can come in and come up again. But the mistake that people make, and even my detractors, mostly white males in the court system, they make a mistake when they see me coming, that I'm some pitiful young black girl, and I'm not young at all, I'm a grandmother. They make a mistake of thinking because of where I went to school and how I lived before, that I can't whip your ass in that courtroom. I mean, whip you and stomp you and throw your language back and your rhetoric and your record in your face and kick your ass with your own record. And that's the day when you know that you are feared. And people who don't want to be feared, you can't be revolutionaries. When you walk in the room should change. The color of the walls, the lights, the carpet, that shit should change. It shouldn't be the same when you leave. You understand? You leave, if everything is gone to hell and you haven't done anything to change that, then I don't care how much you know. You probably know a lot more in terms of black letter this and black letter that. But I'm gonna tell you, Kicking ass in law means that you are beyond heart, right? You so bold, they're scared of you. And make sure somebody who is an oppressor is scared of you. If not, you're not a movement lawyer, you're not a people's lawyer if they're not afraid to see you coming. When I see certain people, I look and I say, oh hell, it's on. I saw the panel this morning. I said, oh hell, we getting ready to go to another level now. So if you don't feel that about yourself, get there. Get there. You can get there. But now, one last thing Vince asked me when he whispered to me, what if I felt there was a mistake that I might have made, or a movement issue or a struggle that went wrong? I don't really have any stories about struggles that went wrong because I have a different definition of victory, okay? So, for example, we went to court in the worst district in the state, Northeast, Monroe County. It is the worst of the worst. So we were there on a Title VII. We represented 9 brothers. We call them the True Temper 9. I even wrote a fabulous poem about these brothers. They were so brave. They were factory workers at True Temper, which makes golf shafts and roller skate wheels, sports items. They were retaliated against for asking for raises that they deserved. So we represented them. But get this, none of them had ever applied for a promotion except one person. One person that applied, everybody else, I just liked them. I liked them because they stood up. But here's the thing, most of them didn't have causes of action that we could survive on. So that's something you have to come to grips with, the fact that sometimes you have to tell people, you can't win this in court, maybe we can win it another way. But guess what? After we lost, we didn't get any verdicts. 2 months later, they got 2 Black foremen in a plant that is 45% Black. And they got the quality assurance people flipped where they were mostly Black. So where we didn't win in court, we won outside of court. We changed the culture of that workplace. Who is we? The workers themselves changed the culture of that workplace. So they didn't leave it the way it was. So no, I didn't win on the law. And I learned a valuable lesson from that. And Chokwe Lumumba told me, he said, but you weren't wrong for taking them. He said, I take people. He said, what I do is I sandwich the weaker cases in the middle. He said, now take them all. And that's who I learned under. I take them all. And if we don't win, we go out in the parking lot and we meet about it. And we flip that and we say, you won because you stood up against the system. And for the first time, somebody went all the way from the EEOC to trial. That was the first time in that company. Most people fell by the wayside when they filed the EEOC and the boss threatened them. But these brothers kept coming. And so that was a victory. So I don't count the defeats as defeats. I count them as lessons to be learned. But that was one time when I didn't show up right as a lawyer, when I took people who didn't have real cases. And I say, don't try this at home, boys and girls. But if you do, cop to it and say, look, maybe I shouldn't have, but hey, I don't regret it. I have no regrets.
Thank you so much. I'm going to do a time check. We're going to be closing out. So I'm going to ask Nomzamo, please, for your comments, and then you, Erin, and then I'll close this out with some program notes.
Yeah, so I mean, I got to think about, like, when I feel like I made a mistake. It happened this year. So someone got arrested. After they got arrested, her husband followed the police van. Husband is killed by the police. They appear in court for bail. So Abahlali call us and they're like, can you guys figure this out? The charge is a triple murder, right? A triple murder. They allege these people were burnt alive. That's the charge. So I'm like, sure. We do some criminal law. We represent protesters. It's a triple murder. I'm like, look, like, we got money. Like, I'm sure I can get the best criminal lawyer and just like write a check. So I call people up and I'm like, I've been told you're the best guy for this. Please go and get this blood on bail. The person gets to court, just says, I'm here representing these people. And then they are told, no, we're postponing for 7 days. And they're like, okay, thank you. They sit down and the matter ends, right? And the bill is like 20,000 Rand to us for that. And I'm like, that was a mistake. Because at the very least, if I was there, I would have told the magistrate that this person just lost her husband. Her kids have just lost their mother and their father in the same incident. And I'm like, okay, next week I'm gonna come. I'm going to court. Next week I get a court and I'm like, I wanna put these things on the record. They're all on the record. Yeah, the police murdered this woman's husband. This happened, this happened, this happened. I'm still told, we're not even gonna talk about your bail until another 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, now I've done it and I've failed. And I'm like, I have a colleague who's like the best criminal lawyer that I know. I'm like, okay, dude, next week it's you. And we get there and he pulls like the most beautiful bail application. At the end of it, like the clients that were with us stand up and clap and we wait for the judgment. We come back and the magistrate says, bail is refused. And I'm like, how? How is it refused? I'm like, fine, doesn't matter. Next month, we're in the appeal court, appealing the refusal of the bail. The judge says, bail, your appeal is dismissed. Bail still refused. And we go and meet these clients in the Westville jail. And they're like, look, we saw you guys at each appearance. We saw you tell all those judicial officers our story, what we wanted them to know. Yes, we are still here. It sucks. Our family does not have us, but we have watched you do that, is what at the very least we needed. And I wonder, but like, should I have done that first appearance in the first place? Is there value, right, in being an inexperienced movement lawyer who's close to their people, right? Who can articulate their position and still be ineffective. I think at the end of the day, from one of the things that I got from that was that at the very least, we've got to go before this court and say, the Constitution demands this. These clients demand this. And yes, we came back with nothing. But the fact that we can stake that claim, for me, is progress. And it's a big part of what I believe movement lawyering has to be. Because if we don't stake those claims, we don't make any progress.
I've made so many mistakes. Where do I begin? I think one of the first mistakes was becoming immersed in law school and having law school friends. Not that I dislike those people. Some of those people are here, but I'm gonna be real. Those 3 years stop you from making really critical connections with people who think about the world in different ways. And what I tell people when I teach law school now is like, yes, cool, make your colleagues and comrades in this space, but like, get out, right? Get out. Because there was no other lawyers in my family. I didn't know about the law. There's no real reason for me to be a lawyer other than like the concept of class privilege and what it meant to go to law school. I don't have a real rounded like space in going and becoming a lawyer when I first started. That was a consciousness I developed. I came from an artist family with artists and I didn't stay connected. I didn't stay connected to organizers. I didn't stay connected. And I used the excuse that law school was hard. It is really hard, but also it is a tactic to keep you away from different ways of thinking, different communities, for building real authentic communities as you're developing a tool. So then when I started practicing, this is my next set of mistakes, I wasn't bold. I wasn't confident because I was a Black lawyer, I was a Black woman, I was, for all the reasons that the world doesn't instill confidence in us. I don't feel bad about it, I don't feel shame about it, but I was still talking to white lawyers that were my supervisors when I was in fact ever supervised. And then I wasn't connected to, y'all know, then I wasn't connected to movement as accountability, right? So the accountability came from the wrong places. So that was another mistake. And I give that as a big category because there were just so many things there's so much boldness I had to learn on the backs of people having their children taken from them. Then I think the next set of mistakes was not challenging all of you all in the room for blaming Black mothers for everything that was wrong in society. Like, I worked in a holistic office where plea agreements all the time were like, release my client because this mom is bad. She treated them badly. And like, I'm not here to be like pie in the sky, there's no harm in this world. But what I will say is like, don't believe the shit that's out there that you're saying to get someone out of jail. Like, if you believe it in your heart, that is a problem. If you're using it as a tactic, okay, we can talk about that. But don't come up on these streets, like out here, like negotiating oppression for different types of carceral systems. Like, I'm not about that. And it took me a while to get my shit together to address the people that were around me. And then I think, you know, some things I started to do better was showing up. I think like we as lawyers, if we're really about that life and we're in community, we show the fuck up. We show up to protest. We show up to like watch a kid. We show up, right? Like, not only because like you have to show up to be in community, like that's just logical. Like, I don't know what community that you're in that you don't have to show up for them, but like you also just have to show up to build other skills, to exchange skills. Like, no one can hold me accountable if they haven't shown up for me. And I cannot hold anyone accountable if I have not shown up for them. And so we're about to be in a world of really trying to be transformative, right? Then like, you can't only show up in the courtroom. You cannot. You must show up in the courtroom, but you can't only show up there. And so that's what I would offer as some reflections for y'all.
I wanted to just offer some closing remarks if I could.
Wait, Vince,
Yes.
do you mind if I jump in for a sec?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Can you, yes, please jump in, and thank you.
Andrea?
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't want to be like the voice
Sure.
that just came in the room, but I did want to also jump in on the last points around failure and also this piece about crisis that you had raised. So I've made many mistakes in my legal practice, but I do want to talk about someone else's today. And it's the need to bring like radical realism to moments of crisis. So I think the repeal of Roe has sort of illuminated where you can go down the wrong path or the right one as a movement lawyer, right? So the lawyers advising Planned Parenthood clinics to not serve people from out of state because of the potential for litigation, that's not being a movement lawyer. Movement lawyers would tell folks, these are the potential risks. You do what you need to do for our people. Let them bring the lawsuit and the prosecution or whatever. We'll fight it tooth and nail with all of our brains and creativity, and we'll be part of collectively building power of resistance beyond legal strategies, because we know the solution won't come in the courts. So, you know, we heard about risk aversion this morning. I just really wanted to lift that up as about what it means to both defend and empower people in crisis, rather than encouraging folks to shrink from their radical vision and principles, and to be lawyers who are willing to take the same risk as we're asking others to take in service of our vision. I just feel like this is a crisis moment that is precipitating, you know, is a reflection of many other crisis moments. And I think as movement lawyers, we need to know the solutions to the crises of racial capitalism and settler colonialism and imperialism don't lie in the courts. They lie in building political power and dismantling the systems that are producing the crisis. So like Mike said in the opening panel, we're not trying to fix the game, we're trying to win the game, but it requires us to still be willing to be out there fighting to win, and to fight in the courts and beyond the courts, and keep our ultimate objective in mind, as we've been talking about, as Daribu said, to dismantle the system. So I just wanted to lift up some resources that Interrupting Criminalization has offered and is offering folks for this kind of work. So one is we made a beautiful binder with many charts for folks based on resources people have created over the years. And I know y'all lawyers like me love a good chart. but it's really about assessing what we're doing in a moment of crisis, whether we are investing in and increasing the power and legitimacy of the system that we're trying to tear down, or whether we are creating conditions that make it easier for more of us to fight. And I think that's really important in this moment, because the more pressure comes from the white supremacist attacks, from the abortion criminalization, from the criminalization of care of trans people, and all the ways they're coming for us, the tendency for lawyers is to lean back into that risk aversion and pull movements back with them. And I want us to lean forward into fighting. And I also want us to stop pushing legal solutions. And that's a mistake I've made. We're not going to legislate our way to the world we want. We can only create, as Nomzamo emphasized, the conditions that made it more possible for more people to fight. But we have to do that by wresting power and resources from the carceral state. So if we're truly abolitionists and movement lawyers, we need to stop advancing legal solutions that invest power and legitimacy in the institutions that we're trying to tear down. So at Interrupting Criminalization, we've created a bunch of resources for folks who are working to dismantle systems of criminalization altogether through campaigns to defund and abolish police. I invite you to check those out at our website. And we're also inviting people, including legal workers and lawyers, to expand the conversation about how we defund and abolish courts, and to imagine together through a Black queer feminist lens and imagination how we prevent, investigate, and adjudicate harm collectively, and that we're looking beyond US borders to lessons from places like our comrades in South Africa and elsewhere. And we're launching a new Beyond Courts, Criminal Courts, Defund Courts website on July 28th at the Building Abolitionist Toolbox series. So check out our website for more info on that. And we're also inviting folks into conversation about how to interrupt criminalization and carceral responses that happen beyond police, that happen in the other institutions that we might be offering up as alternatives to policing. So whether that's access to medical treatment, or access to housing that is criminalized, or access to, or pushing people into the family policing service or system, or other things. So just wanted to, again, offer folks the resources and the opportunity to come in as movement lawyers into a conversation about how we interrupt criminalization in all the legal systems and all the quasi-legal systems and all the ways it happens outside legal systems, and to pull the whole thing down, because our job is ultimately to dismantle the entire racial capitalist carceral state. And as movement lawyers, that is our job description. And we need to figure out where we can get in and be part of that fight in service of our people. And I hope that some of those tools are helpful to all of us as we're moving forward with that. And I'll kick it back to you.
Thank you, Andrea. And thank you for claiming this space. It was very helpful, and my apologies again. I want to close this in 3 very short sections. The first section is entitled "The Best Lawyers." The second section is entitled "Kendrick Says Be Humble," and the third is entitled "The Parking Lot." The best lawyers. This is just a reminder. What Dr. Robin Kelly told us earlier: the best lawyers are not in this room. That we have legal workers. We have people that are on the inside, jailhouse lawyers that are extraordinary. And our challenge is to not only recognize, but to be able to support and partner. I will just drop one thing. The Center for Constitutional Rights and the National Lawyers Guild has had the Jailhouse Lawyers Handbook, which is now in the 99th edition. I think it's the 3rd edition, 30 years. You can download that on the CCR website and send that to the jailhouse lawyer in your life. They probably have it already, but it's a series of tools. It's updates on cases and things that are happening, particularly for folks that are inside that are not allowed to get those updates. Kendrick says, "Be humble." I want to distinguish humility from honesty and accountability. We have to be accountable to our people. We have to be honest with ourselves. And if we are accountable to our people and honest with ourselves, that means we do have to show up humbly in community spaces, but we have to show up like Jaribu in court. The parking lot. It's not a test, but for anyone that has been in court with a group of folks that have had their hopes not unreasonably pinned on a win, that was going to advance what they wanted, and they lost, and they get the bad news. Anybody has been in that space, where do you go to talk about it? You go to the parking lot. And in the parking lot, you will find the following things. For people that are wondering whether the work is worth it, whether it's a contradiction, you will find the following thing, that the people that you have been struggling with for such a long time will do a better job of consoling you. Because there are tears, there's I could have, we tried, and they're like, hey, they will put that loss in context, and they will say, here's what we're going to do next. That begins in the parking lot. So the goal is not to get into court. The goal is to be in the parking lot with your people when you're thinking about the next strategy. And as my sister, Erin Miles Cloud says, we are all in it together. Thank you all so much for coming. Please give it up for Taribu Hill, Nomzamo Zondo, Erin Miles Cloud, and Andrea Ritchie. All right, so before y'all go, I got some programs.